I'm on record 20 years ago in the mid-90s as having said the current situation with arXiv and journals coexisting can't possibly persist for another 5 to 10 years. The reason I said that was you had readers coming to arXiv in certain fields, and that number of fields has just been continuously increasing for their readership, whereas you had a funding model where the journals were operating on the basis of libraries subscribing to the journals, and so overhead on grants would go through universities and other institutions to libraries and then to the journals. And I couldn't see how that would persist. I could see how it could be some kind of unstable equilibrium, but how could it continue like that if people weren't going to the libraries to read the material? They were getting it via an alternate information feed. Why would the libraries continue to subscribe? And to cut things short, I can say, obviously, I was wrong because it's 20 years later, and I said I couldn't possibly persist for more than 5 to 10 years. And for that reason, I'm unwilling to make any further projections. It sounds like I'm embarrassed that I was wrong. I'm not. When something like that happens, it's very interesting. You have to understand it's a good thing in many ways that there was enough inertia in the system because, as I've mentioned, we don't have an alternate model for funding this. I've said we need the quality control. So it's good that there was enough inertia in the system that things have stayed. My 5 to 10 year projection was also that we were going to solve this problem and find a more efficient way of implementing the peer review. And given that we haven't done that, it's good that there's still this peaceful coexistence. Most of the publishers have come to be very accepting that this is the community is able to compartmentalize in a sense. We have the things that we feel very expert on. We consult arXiv because we are able to assess it. But if you go slightly outside of your own field, if I'm reading something in biology, I wouldn't trust my instincts on that. But I'm very happy to see, this paper has been published in PNAS, and therefore it's undergone some form of review. And that's the sense in which I say the researchers work bimodally. There are things that we want immediately, but we also rely on the journals for other things. And that's all playing into the coexistence. And it may be that it may be that this situation will persist indefinitely. I mean, maybe that's the wrong, having been wrong 20 years ago to turn completely in the opposite direction, but maybe there always will be room for one system, which is the open dissemination unreviewed system, which is the natural form of communication on the internet, the World Wide Web as we now know it. And then simultaneously, you'll have these quality controlled outlets that people can consult, and we'll never be back in the mode where one or the other is completely dominant.